Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast, fam. I want to talk about something very important today. Let's talk about mental health in children. So, the reason why I want to talk about this because the kids are going back to school and we're coming off of a pandemic. Heck, we're still in a pandemic and things have been crazy for the past year or so, especially for our children. And I feel like some people might not realize that kids have really struggled during the pandemic. A lot of their places were closed. They didn't get a chance to really talk with their friends. You know, people are wearing the mask. So it just all looked really scary. And it kind of seemed like it was the end of the world at some points. Even now, it feels like it's the end of the world when we go vaccinated versus unvaccinated. But I don't want to talk about that. I'm going to strictly go off of my experience of what happened with me. So this is like just my story. I'm not giving out any medical advice or anything like that, but I will give what happened to us, our story, and what we've done so far and what we're continuing to do to help Raylan through a very tough time. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I just want to offer a little bit of advice if I could. So we're going to talk about Raylan and the mental health challenges he faced during the pandemic and currently what we're dealing with. So this pandemic was a lot on a lot of our mental health. I mean, a lot of us are still reeling from things that happened in 2020, and for kids it was even rougher. And I think a lot of people probably don't realize how hard 2020, this pandemic, was on children. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and that's what happened with Ray. So 2020 was just a year of a lot going on. There's really nothing much to say about it. So 2020 was, of course, coronavirus. Coronavirus for children meant a lot of their things that they used to love is now closed. Your indoor playground, even your parks and playgrounds were closed for some time. The libraries were closed. Your school was virtual. There wasn't a lot of interaction with other kids. It was just really tough. So, coupled that we're in extended stay, so we're not in the home of our own. It's been very tough trying to find a place to stay during this pandemic, and that's like a lot on a child. They stress about that. Even if you don't want them to, you're trying to make this the best situation for them possible. Kids still stress about things like that. So there was that. There's the face-to-face learning. If you listen to my previous podcast about public school and all of our issues with public school, then you know that virtual learning was a lot for Raylan. It was a lot on me too. So there was that. And his birthday is August the 14th. And during that time, nothing was open. We didn't get a chance to do anything. So his dad was supposed to come to town, enjoy his birthday with him, and he didn't. I don't know if it's because of the pandemic, couldn't get away here. He lives in Savannah, we're in Atlanta, and it was very hard during that time to get away here. But, you know, you could have tried a little harder. But that's for a different episode. So there was all of those things that happened. And it seemed like it all came to head in October of 2020. That's when everything just went downhill. Everything went completely, I don't even know the word for it. It just came to a head in October 2020. And I always remember this because my birthday is October 30th. And I remember saying that, you know, the weeks leading up to my birthday were just hell on wheels. There's no other way to say it. It was so rocky. It's like something I would never forget. It's something I've never seen before. It was very scary for all of us. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more now. So what I want to say is you want to notice those subtle changes. We didn't notice the subtle changes. We didn't notice the not eating, the staying up late, the not wanting to do things that you love. You know, we're just thinking, oh, maybe it's just this, maybe it's that, not realizing that it was a sign for something bigger to come. And not saying that's for all children, but just to talk to your children, see where their head is at all times, make sure that they're doing okay, without saying, hey, are you okay? Because most of the time they're going to say, yeah, I'm okay, because it's really hard to explain those feelings when you're this young. So you just have to kind of pay attention. Like, I noticed that you haven't been eating lately. You know, what's going on? Is it that you don't like the food, or is it something else bigger going on? Just kind of starting those conversations any way that you can. It's a very tough conversation to have, but it's very much needed at all times. So, anyways, so let's see, October, it started happening where he was not liking virtual school at all. He hated doing the work. He hated getting up to do the work. Hating getting up and getting on the computer and doing the virtual school. He hated it with a passion. Like, I can't even say he disliked it strongly. He really hated it. It was just, for him, he has a few learning challenges. He wasn't reading at that time. So the work was very hard on him. This is first grade, but it was very difficult to not be able to be in that classroom setting and to not be able to really grasp the material the way that he needed to. And so he was very overwhelmed. He was very frustrated, and he was over it. And I noticed him being over it, but, I still just kept signing him on to class, hoping that things got better, that maybe something would click. And I realized that it was bigger than the learning. It was more him struggling mentally. And I wish I would have caught on to that sooner, because I definitely would have pulled my child out of homeschool had I foreshadowed what would have came down the line, right? So, I don't remember what time. I want to say it's the first week of October. So he started having, I guess we'll call them episodes. This is times where he was not himself. It's like his eyes went blank. He was just a totally different kid. We didn't recognize this kid at all. He would want to run out the room. He was talking about not wanting to be here anymore. He was just not okay. He was having violent fits. He was having tantrums. I guess that's what you can call them. They were called tantrums, I guess. I don't know. He was throwing stuff around the room. We have pictures where our room was completely trashed. And he was not sleeping at all. Like, he was up for days at a time. He wasn't eating at all. It was such violent things happening. And I remember the first time we had to take him to Children's Hospital, because we were like, we don't know what's wrong with him. Can you guys help us? Because we didn't know what else to do. My mom had to take him because I was with the little one. So, and they kept saying that they're seeing this a lot with children, and they keep working with him at home. And if we wanted to put him in a psych hospital for children, things like that. So we were given a lot of different options when we talked to them about our issues. So we went to Children's a few times. We did the crisis workers. So we did the work for sure to make sure that Raylan was mentally whole, mentally well. But it was very scary at one point. It involved the whole family. It involved his little brother that only wanted to make sure that he was okay. But at the time, Raylan was in the midst of like some trance, and he could only really he couldn't really understand where he was sometimes, and it seemed like he would blank out. We had to make sure we protect Rylan at all costs. So it was things like that was happening in the home that a lot of people probably didn't know that we were going through. It was very scary. I worried a lot about losing him, wondering if he's going to run in the street, get ran over. Is he going to commit suicide? Is he going to kill himself? What's going to happen to my child? Is he ever going to be whole again? Or is this just who he's going to be forever? And if he has a diagnosed mental issue, how is the world going to be for him? So I was very scared, because I was like, man, I don't know what this new normal is going to look like when all of this ends. So, for a parent, it was very much one of the hardest things I've ever been through. And it was hard to see him like that, because I'm like, man, he's not okay. He's nothing that's going to make him okay. Not no toys, not no money, not walks in the park. My child needs serious help, and I got to figure out how to give him that help during a pandemic when nothing is open. You guys, it was like the toughest spot to ever be in as a parent. So once we noticed that school was an issue for him, we reached out to his counselor, and we told him the issues that he was experiencing and what was going on with him. We thought that they received this information well, and then they were like, hey, if you take them to Children's again, get them to fill out this release authorization and stuff like that. And I remember not being comfortable with that. I didn't want to release his files to the school because I've had so many challenges with the school, especially with his learning. And I just didn't want them to be biased towards him based on his mental health, especially when I myself didn't know what he could possibly be diagnosed with. I wanted to take time to take care of his mental health and not have a stigma against him, especially since he was already going through so much at school. So I remember telling the counselor, no, I'm not doing that. And I remember after that, things really did shift. And I wish I would have noticed that energy shift, and I would have went ahead, pulled him out, homeschool my way, and really got him mentally well. I'm telling you, so many things that I missed at that time, but I was so in it, so busy trying to get him well that I just was not thinking about much. But I want to see my child again. I want to see my child well again. I want to see him happy again. I don't like him being miserable. I don't like him being sad. I don't like him not being himself. So anyways, they were going to give us 2 weeks off to take care of his mental health needs. But after I declined to admit him to the psych ward because once we learned about the program, I wasn't sure if I wanted my son to go away for almost a month. And I wasn't sure I wanted to do that. I wasn't sure if I wanted to put him on medication yet. I wasn't sure if that was the right move for my child at that time. So I wanted some time to really think about the decisions I needed to make. And I feel like the school really didn't give me much time. They were like, okay, well, since you didn't admit him, you're not going to authorize his files to us. We want him to get back on the classes and stuff like that. I think that's like a week after or something. I thought you guys are going to give me 2 weeks to make sure that he's okay. And they're like, we're really going to push this child to do school when he's not mentally well. But what I've learned is the public school system doesn't care about the whole child. They only care about what the child can do on paper. They do not care about the mental and emotional well-being of a child. They don't care about this whole, that anything takes on children. They just care about their numbers. They care about their bottom line, and that's it. So that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned during this time, that the school is not really a good support when your child is going through a mental health crisis. And that's just my personal opinion. If you feel differently, then you feel differently. But I was not supported at the school that we were at.